Welcome.
I forgot to click the last button.
All right. We are live. Let's see. Thank you for checking out Museum Ship Mafia this evening. And it is New Year's Eve. We are thrilled to have you guys with us. Tonight is our last episode. When it comes to the Fletcher-class destroyers, the commissioning the Fletcher-class destroyers, the 4 remaining. Tonight, of course, it's for the Cassin Young. And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. So I've got Connor, Shane, Tim from the USS Kidd, and we've got Warren Smith. We call him Buzz from the Cassin Young. Stop. Buzz, can you hear us all right?
Uh-oh.
Yes, I can.
Buzz, can you?
Good on your end.
Outstanding. All right. Then I'll tell you what. We've got your outline. I've got all kinds of photographs that Buzz supplied to us. So, like I said a few moments ago, it's about the Cassin Young, about the commissioning of the Cassin Young. So let's dive right in. Buzz, take it away.
Hi, well, welcome everybody. I have to use a standard disclaimer when I do these talks. I speak for myself and the volunteers. I do not speak for the U.S. Navy or the National Park Service. All the pictures I provided, you can feel free to use or not use any of them. They're all available online. They're all open source. Some of them came from the Park Service, and we have permission. So the pictures are all good. So the original design for the talk was to talk a little bit about destroyers and their duties. So just to review a little bit for those folks that may not be as history crazy as the rest of us are. Late 19th century, early 20th century, all the navies were into big battleships. That was the thing back then. Just like ships of the line during the Napoleonic era, bigger was better. But smaller countries couldn't attack big ships because they couldn't afford to build them. So they started building a thing called a torpedo boat. Once they developed torpedoes that were actually functionable. They were small, they were fast. They could get in, attack a capital ship, and hopefully get away just as fast. Well, the countries all realized that they had to come up with something to go after the torpedo boats, and that was a destroyer. And later, over time, they just called them destroyers. They were larger than the torpedo boats, but fast and agile with heavier weapons. So enough of that history. Duties of destroyers, especially in World War II, and as now, they designed to protect other ships, convoys, battle groups, larger naval vessels. They used their sensors, radars, sonars, Mark I eyeballs all over the ship. And they used speed and agility to act as messengers, move sailors around, move equipment, move mail. They've got multi-role weapon systems. The Fletchers were capable of surface-to-surface combat using their guns or torpedoes. Surface-to-shore using their main guns and 40 millimeters for gunfire support for invasions. And surface to submarine. The Fletchers had sonar, they had depth charges. In World War II, late in World War II, they came up with Hedgehogs, which is a type of mortar for going after submarines. Their minor secondary weapon systems are what you see on your screen. That's a quad 40 millimeter mount made by Bofors. All the combatants in World War II used them. They would normally be used against aircraft. You could also use them against ship or shore targets. That's your standard crew that you can see there. What you can't see is the ammo passers that are passing the 4-round clips up to the loaders. You've got a pointer and a trainer to run the mount, and then a gun captain, which is the dude in the middle screaming, trying to be heard over the firing weapons. VA would call that not service connected for a hearing loss. A big deal for the destroyers is also plane guard duties. They would hang behind the carrier that was launching and recovering aircraft And if an aircraft happened to go in the water, either by accident or running out of fuel, or was so badly damaged that they did not want it on the flight deck, they would stay behind the carrier, like you see in this picture here. You can see the plane landing. And if they missed or they got shot down or something happened, they end up in the water. The carrier does not stop. The carrier never stops during these operations. That's the destroyer's job. They go in and pick up the pilots and the crew. As we had when Tim did his thing for the kid, the pilots can be jokingly held for ransom. Usually a pilot is worth 5 to 10 gallons of ice cream. Somehow when they were transporting them back between the ship, either in a bag like this or with a bosun's chair, about halfway across the mechanism would fail. And it would probably take ice cream to get that mechanism going again. Unless it's the kid, because those batch of pirates actually got an ice cream machine. So they just wanted the powder. This is a big evolution. I've been involved with these quite a few times when I was in the Navy. Refueling at sea is done every day and a half to 2 days. You don't ever want to get really low. So that would take place. They would refuel regularly. It's also the ballast for a Fletcher.
I think you sent me a
keep the weight
refueling
low in the
photo.
water.
This is a refueling photo right here, right?
Yes,
yeah,
it
that's
is.
okay. All right, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see the lines running across the cables and then the black hose. World War II, they'd just take that hose aboard with a nozzle and dump it into a trunk and hopefully get it down low enough so that it wouldn't splash out. The modern ones have a probe and a receiver, but the mechanism is still the same. Also underway, you could also use the same setup. You'd end up bringing food across from supply ships, ammunition from ammunition ships, personnel and wounded could go back and forth this way. It's quite a ride. There's a wounded sailor being transported either onto the ship on the right or from or to the destroyer. Most likely the destroyer escort that you can see in the background is sending a wounded sailor to this ship. Nowadays, there's actually a float around that Stokes basket, so if it goes in the water, it'll float. Back in the old days, they didn't have the floats, so if something broke and they went in the water, it was not a good day. Another major job is radar picket. The destroyers, the Fletchers especially, had up to the date for that time radars, so they'd put them on the outskirts of the convoys or the battle groups or around the islands to give early warning for attack. Very important duties. Destroyer escorts, back when I was in frigates, all did the same type of job, escorting and protecting other ships. They used their speed and agility. These ships had no armor whatsoever. So specifically for my ship, the Cassin Young, it's actually named after an individual. Commander Cassin Young was the commanding officer of the USS Vestal, which is a repair ship, which was tied up along a ship that a lot of you have heard about called the USS Arizona. They were right alongside when the attack happened. The ship was hit by at least 2 bombs. It was damaged. The captain helped man a 3-inch anti-aircraft gun. And when the ship Arizona exploded, he got blown into Pearl Harbor, swam back. They threw a line over, pulled him back up, and he managed to get the ship underway. He also realized that the ship was too badly damaged to get out to the open ocean, did not want to get sunk in the one channel that leads out of Pearl Harbor. So he beached the ship on the northeast side of Pearl Harbor, right alongside where the Pepsi-Cola plant is now, what I was told on a tour back when we were out there for the HINSA conference. He was awarded the Medal of Honor for his basically heroics that day. He was injured and still managed to get back to his ship and get underway and get away from the Arizona. The ship did get get repaired, and went back into action. And basically, Cassin Young followed the USS Vestal all around the Pacific. After Pearl Harbor and he recovered, he was appointed commanding officer, promoted to captain. This is a picture of him with his 4 bars on, full captain. San Francisco was a heavy cruiser and was part of the cruiser battles off of Guadalcanal around Savo Island. He was killed in action along with the Commodore of the particular fleet when the bridge of the San Francisco was hit by a Japanese cruiser. And everybody on the bridge was killed, including Cassin Young. So destroyers are commonly named after heroes of the Navy. Medal of Honor winners, not winners, you don't win one of those, you earn it. Or Navy Cross. So it was decided that one of the ships that was being laid in San Pedro, California, was be named the USS Cassin Young. The keel itself was laid in March of 1943, launched in September of 1943, and christened by Mrs. Cassin Young, and then was commissioned on today in 1943. And if you do the math, that ship was laid down, built, and commissioned in 288 days, which is quite a thing.
Hey, Buzz,
very impressive. It's something. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I did a little reading on that as well. That 110 days from, from today going back to launching. I did a little, I looked up the USS the Sullivans, and that was 179 days from launching to commissioning. So they shaved off 60 days or something like that at the San Pedro shipbuilding there from the Sullivans. I was pretty astounded by that.
I was astounded as well, knowing how all the systems that are on these ships. But you also have to remember it's kind of like a Lego set. You're not building all the different components and then putting it on the ship. You're continually building the components. And the large cranes that you see at the shipyard would gather up the pieces out of storage and just bring them to the ship. The main construction was the keel, then the ribs and the strakes to build the hull. And then they start dropping all this stuff into it. So you've got a shop that's making 5-inch guns by the hundreds. And they just, when they're ready, they just bring one over with the crane and drop it in place, weld them up, get them set up. So they've got quite the assembly line going. Kind of like the Henry Ford idea with the Model T. All interchangeable
parts. I was just going to ask that. It sounds to me like, based on what you're saying, I didn't realize this, but you just said Henry Ford from a few moments ago. So they're almost using, or let me start over. Would you say this is like one of the first examples of modular ship construction?
Am
Am I pushing that?
I think it's a push. I think they were doing stuff before that.
But okay, so I mean, I understand lowering a gun into place. Like you said, they'd have a Bofors ready to go. But it wasn't quite modular ship construction,
except for the Liberty
ship today.
Okay.
Yeah, the Liberty ships,
Victory ships.
They were really modular, and what from my reading, what they did was in the interwar period, they would assign certain contracts to certain shipyards. And so there were specialty shipyards that were able to make, so you're not giving a battleship to a shipyard that had never made a battleship before.
Which makes sense. I get that.
So the modulation to me really was the Liberty ships.
Okay.
But that's my opinion and my thought. And then you had expert shipyards around the country building submarines or, destroyers, where then others focused on cruisers, others focused on carriers, things like that. But other thoughts are fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, Buzz. I just had to hit you with that question.
Oh, that's okay.
Go ahead.
No,
Yeah.
that's what this is all about. Boston Naval Shipyard, which is why I'm there and the Cassin Young is there, built 23 Fletchers. They also built destroyer escorts and LSTs, landing ship tanks. Within sight of Boston are 5 other shipyards, and they were all building various types of ships, most of them smaller ones. But the Fletchers at the time were built there in Boston at the Charlestown Navy Yard. And they built a few larger ones as well, but nowhere near that amount of time. They were cranking these things out. That's one of my favorite new ones, by the way, because it's got both us and our peer mate right in the same shot. It's USS Constitution in the background. Really special to work right next to that ship and work with the sailors that are assigned there. And that is still an active duty ship and manned by active duty sailors. And a lot of the visitors, when they come to us, ask us if we served aboard Cassin Young, and my standard answer is I only look that old when she was decommissioned.
That's a good one, Buzz.
Oh, yeah. It breaks the ice.
That's a different docking than what I saw a few months ago, huh, Buzz? They're set up differently?
Yes. Yeah, it is. I'm not sure why it was set up that way for this picture. Normally, when Constitution goes into the dry dock, you can see on the side of that gray building where the crane is. We have to get onto this side to get out of their way. But I'm not sure why both were there at the same time. It's an older picture that I found. So it may be getting ready to do one of the things that they used to do. They used to call them sea trials. And all the veterans and their families would come aboard and they'd hook them up to a tug and take them out in the harbor, just like a turnaround cruise. But the Navy has put a stop to that. They're not allowed to do that anymore. Would not be a good thing to sink in the middle of Boston Harbor if something were to happen.
Hey, Buzz, let me ask you about, so Cassin Young, you had said he was on the Vestal. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And is this a picture of, I want to make sure I get some of these pictures right, because you sent a ton to me and I find them pretty interesting, but I don't know if I'm getting them in the right order.
Yeah, too many probably.
Well, that's all right. That's all right. We're getting through them. What is this?
That is the Vestal.
Okay, so all right. Yeah. I wanted to make sure.
That is the USS Vestal. And that is also the Vestal beached in Pearl Harbor after she got hit.
Got it. Okay. And that's how he earned the Medal of Honor?
Correct. For manning a gun, actually getting blown off and wounded into the harbor and swimming back and still getting the ship underway. And then realizing he couldn't get it out and beaching it. Just like the Nevada, the USS Nevada started getting underway and realized that any moving ship was a target for the Japanese planes. And if they were able to sink any of the ships in the channel, there's only one way in and one way out of Pearl Harbor. So if you were to sink a ship in that channel, Pearl Harbor's bottled up for months. So they were smart enough to beach it, save the ship, keep the port open.
Got it. And let's see here. For those of you that are just joining us, thank you for checking out this special episode of Museum Ship Mafia. Happy New Year's. We've got Buzz from the Cassin Young on with us tonight. And the reason we are talking to him and talking about the Cassin Young is that this is the 80th anniversary of the commissioning of the Cassin Young. It was commissioned on New Year's Eve, which is why we're having this episode. So I'm going to hand it back over to Buzz. And all right, what are we going to be talking about next?
We're actually going to go into after they've commissioned and heading out to war. So we start off with Commander Schreiber, who was the first commanding officer. He was a full commander, regular Navy. That's him in the middle. With the El Mustache. Very task-oriented commander, I think they'd like to call it. The sailors probably had other words for him. He drilled them after they did their sea trials to make sure the ship was ready to go. On the way to Pearl Harbor off to war, he just did drill, gunnery, damage control, firefighting, casualty. They hated him. He never gave them a day off. He knew where they were going and what was going to happen. So he worked the crew and worked them hard. On this picture, the one to the right is Commander Ailes. He was the second commander. We'll get into him in a little while. And the one on the left is supposed to be the commanding officer off Okinawa, Commander Wallace. He was killed in action on the second Kamikaze attack, and I'll have a little more about that later too. But
Okay.
I think if you look at Commander Schreiber right in the middle, you can see it in his eyes. He's a regular. He knows what he's getting into, and he wants the best crew he can make. Oh, that's what he did. He stayed with the ship from commissioning to October of 1944. So, getting into the actual record of the ship, they started with the Saipan invasion. That was Cassin Young's exposure to combat. From then on, every individual landing in the Pacific, Cassin Young was there in one way or another, all the way to the end, up to Okinawa. So not only did it do the duties we already talked about during the war, they were raiding all the different islands ahead of invasion to keep the Japanese unsure where we were going next. And the first time that Cassin Young was injured was at one of these raids off of Formosa, now known as Taiwan, when they were jumped by Japanese fighters, and the ship got strafed and wounded 5 sailors. You can still see some of the repairs from these attacks on the ship if you know where to look. There's holes all around the ship from all the different attacks. After that, they ended up down on one of the raids. They ended up off the Philippines. This is a picture of the USS Princeton, which is a light carrier. It was struck by one bomb off of the Philippines during the operations there. The bomb penetrated into the bakery, which was right next to a magazine that the ship had set up for torpedoes and bombs. It was not a formal magazine. It was just something that they set up. It exploded in that area and then set fire to the Princeton. Cassin Young was alongside, trying to see if they could help put the fires out. They were pulled away. This picture is taken from Cassin Young. The ship that you see is most likely the USS Irwin, another Fletcher, which was then ordered to get out of the way by the USS Birmingham, which is a light cruiser, because they're taller. And they were actually using their firefighting gear to try to control the fires when that magazine exploded on the Princeton. There were over 600 killed on the Birmingham, which is many more than was killed on the Princeton. Everything on the port side, as you saw in that picture, was damaged. Shrapnel holes everywhere, lots of wounded and killed everywhere. The ship was, Birmingham was badly hurt. I have the radio traffic from this incident that I used for a special talk we did with the Park Service. And there's a lot of radio traffic about going to get these people here in the water, there in the water. Cassin Young rescued about 75 sailors out of the water. And then Irwin, the ship that I think it is that you can see there, rescued over 100. After the explosion, the Princeton was doomed. The Birmingham was effectively knocked out of the war. When Cassin Young, the ship, was in San Francisco on the way to the Pacific, the doctor, Eugene Ledesma, doubled up on the plasma supplies. And Commander Schreiber didn't like him to do it, but he had the storage, so he let him get away with it. Everything's big on your table of organization. If you're authorized 50 and you have 100, they want to take them away. But the doctor held on to the stuff, and luckily he did, because it all went to the Birmingham. Just as a side note, one of our volunteers, he doesn't like me mentioning his name, so I won't, but his father was on the port side of the Birmingham when the explosion happened. That picture that shows all the shrapnel, which is the one I believe right after this one, he's in that picture. The sailor in the tub on the 01 level, right underneath that gun tub, that's his father. Just taking a look at the damage. Birmingham got really badly hurt. So,
Wait a second. So this is the picture you're talking about.
yes.
And
if you ignore the guys standing at the lifelines.
At the lifelines, okay.
Go up one level.
Yes.
And you'll see two sailors right next to each other. One's
Yeah.
got a dark coat on, the other's in dungarees.
Yes.
The gentleman on the left. So I was told.
In the dungaree.
By his son. I use this.
Okay.
Yeah. I use this for a talk, and I didn't even know it. And he calls me up and he says, why are you showing a picture of my dad? And I'm like, huh? What? So,
What?
yeah, and you can see shrapnel everywhere. You got to remember all these ships. Yeah. All of these ships have personnel on the main decks and on the upper decks, because all the weapons are operated by people. So when something happens and people are on the deck like this, they get hurt. So that's why you have the medical departments on board that you have to try to, patch up as many people as you can. That's what my job used to be. So, okay, after the Princeton 793 ended up with, that's the Birmingham pulling in next to the Princeton.
Yeah,
so you can see how much higher it is.
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask you, so the Birmingham basically told the Irwin to get the hell out of the way because they were a little taller?
Yes, same with Cassin Young. Both of us, both like say us because it's our ship. We tried getting in there to do the same thing that you can see that the Birmingham's doing, is try to put fires out, and we were just too short. They could actually spray the water from the Birmingham into the hangar deck and onto the flight deck, which is what they're in the process of doing here.
Go ahead, Connor. You had a question?
That's an Atlanta class. I'm pretty sure. Birmingham was a Cleveland.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. You can see they're only twin mounts, and for the Cleveland class, they would have had two, then the double twin. But in this picture, you're seeing the two twins.
Yeah,
all along the front there. 51.
I don't mean to diss or anything, but I just noticed that because I love the Atlantas and I recognize that instantly. That's a great photo of one, though.
The doctor actually took that picture.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Commander Schreiber appointed him the ship's photographer.
Yeah, those aren't the 6-inch triple mounts though on the front. That would be like the Birmingham Cleveland class.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's probably what the what were the other, Oakland or something? It could be maybe. I don't know. Again, I'm not disputing anyway. Go ahead, Buzz.
Yeah. It sounds like
I honestly don't know.
It was almost a stroke of luck because you said the Cassin Young was prepared to go in and fight fires, and Birmingham, whoever, was alongside fighting the fire, and then that's when that massive explosion occurred. And the Cassin Young could have easily been hit. If the Cassin Young was in that position, the Cassin Young could have been hit by that.
Absolutely.
I see. Okay.
And if I can point something out in this picture, I can underscore what Buzz is talking about with the Fletchers being so much smaller than the carriers. Look at the funnel, the smokestacks for that Fletcher right there. That's just barely clearing the flight deck. We actually had an incident on Kidd where we were delivering mail, and the captain, our first CO, was really good at maneuvering the ship, and he snugged Kidd right up alongside. It may have been Princeton because we escorted Princeton here and there. but he snugged her up right underneath to where the guys on the outer edges of the flying bridge were having to duck to avoid being hit by stuff from the carrier. So they were much too small to get the water all the way up and over onto the flight deck.
Well, all right. So if that's okay, so that's a Fletcher alongside, and like Tim pointed out, you see the stacks, the top of the stacks in relation to the flight deck, and then you look at this picture here. Assuming that the list is at the same angle, you can see how much higher this cruiser is. Yeah, point taken.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. All right. So again, sorry for interrupting, Buzz. What do you got next?
No, that's what this is all about. It's learning and education. We all learn stuff every time we do it. All right. After this, Cassin Young was part of Admiral Halsey's goose chase, if you want to call it that. During the Leyte Gulf battle, the Japanese, typically of their Navy at the time, had 3 separate attacks trying to stop the landings at Leyte Gulf. There was a major decoy operation by the Japanese carriers, and Admiral Halsey took the bait and took his task force along with Cassin Young to go chase those carriers. He did catch them. They did sink the carriers, but all the heavies, the battleships and the heavy cruisers, were now not at Leyte Gulf. So, yes, they destroyed some major combatants, but luckily as we discussed with Parks last month, the destroyers went after the Japanese battleships and stopped that wing of the attack from getting in there. Little anti-submarine work. That's a couple of depth charges going off. I don't know from what ship. I just happened to find it trying to gather some pictures of weapons in operation. But Cassin Young missed the actual Battle of Leyte Gulf, but they did participate in the Philippines operation. Cassin Young also rode out Halsey's Typhoon that time that his task force got caught in a major typhoon. Cassin Young had just refueled right before the storm got so bad that they couldn't operate anymore. So we had ballast, and they took some heavy rolls, but they didn't roll over.
Yeah, because Shane was talking
one
about
destroyer and one destroyer escort did not able to get fuel, and they did roll over and sink.
In the last episode, we were talking about, Shane, isn't that the Typhoon you were talking about where Halsey and McCain kind of got reprimanded?
They got reprimanded for both Typhoon, Cobra, and Viper. So the Cobra is the one where the Spence was lost, and the Monaghan or the Monaghan and the Hull, I think, because they, as Buzz had said earlier, and just now repeated it really nicely, that they were trying to refuel, and if they didn't have fuel, they were a little top heavy, because I think those 3 destroyers just came back from Ulithi or getting repairs. So they were a little top heavy. They had changed their radar, and they had no fuel oil. So they were a little more top heavy, and they didn't have any of the bottom ballast. And so those 3 went down, and the Spence was the largest loss of life on a Fletcher-class at 285. I think they only rescued 5 guys off of that. So there were the 2. This particular one is Typhoon Cobra, but yeah.
So in a previous episode, Tim was telling us about there was a Fletcher-class destroyer that just had the worst luck ever. I forget which destroyer that was, but it just had the worst luck ever. And it sounds to me like the Cassin Young has, kind of some of the best luck ever. It refueled right before the Typhoon. It didn't get a chance to run alongside the Princeton. So it kind of sounds like there was a shining star over the Cassin Young. I mean, I know what's going to come next. I know what Buzz is going to tell us next, talking about the Kamikaze hits. But up until this point, it sounds like it was a pretty lucky ship.
Yeah, overall, yes. To have all those men out in the main deck, operating weapons and get strafed by fighters and only have 5 guys wounded, that's pretty good. That's pretty lucky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the at large block letters. Yeah, this is a post-war picture, of course, probably in the 1950s. But the next operation for us was Iwo Jima. The ship provided naval gunfire support during that whole operation. This is a World War II picture. This was the second paint job that the ship had. This is that ocean blue that they tried out. The previous one was the destroyer Dazzle. That's the first paint job that she had early in the war. And then during one of the stops at Ulithi, they painted it ocean blue.
Wait, hold on a second.
So
you're talking about,
Iwo Jima
talking about that one.
was all gunfire. She was tasked with that, not radar picket. So they would shoot the guns all day supporting the Marines and then pull away to an ammunition ship at night and reload. And they'd empty the magazines every day and then reload them all at night. Exhausting work. The crew would have not liked that particular duty because it's very heavy. This is not the Cassin Young, just another ship I found moving. Those are the powder can transport tanks that they're carrying by hand from probably a pallet that was dropped on deck, and then they carry them to the elevators to go send it down to the magazines. So a lot of manual labor. So on to Okinawa, which is the crux of the ship. Cassin Young was assigned as a radar picket. They were operating either on picket station 1 or 2 in the early parts of the Okinawa campaign. They were at station 2 when one of the other Fletchers was hit, and they went over to station 1 to help recover casualties when the ship sank, pulling sailors out of the water and then transported them away. And they were told to stay put at station 1. Station 1 is the closest to Japan, and a lot of the destroyers that got damaged or sunk were done up on the north side. That's quite a ride. That's a bosun's chair.
Yeah.
You could tell whether the person being transported was liked or not because they could get a feet wash because all these lines are handled manually. So if you had somebody who wanted to give them a little tickle, you could lower them down enough to get their feet wet. Not that I've ever seen that happen. So this is our first kamikaze strike. Was April 12th of 45. 6 aircraft attacked Cassin Young up in position 1. One of our volunteers, Bob, made this up. Bob Harris, he did a great job making these for showing to our visitors. But it was a Val dive bomber. The whole group was a batch of Vals. The Cassin Young shot down 3 of them. Number 4 crashed right next to the stern of the ship and ripped off the lifelines down by the port side depth charge rack. And then another one came in and struck the main mast just above the yardarm, cut that clean, and then exploded between the 2 stacks. That's another picture of the people repairing the yardarm. You can see where they've got one of the yardarms put back up and they're rewiring everything. We had 1 killed on this attack, a torpedoman, Moore, torpedoman 3rd class Moore. He was buried at sea. According to Tim, when we went back to Ulithi for repairs, because we couldn't be a radar picket with no radar, this is actually the atoll at Ulithi. You can see how many ships they could fit in there. The parking agent for the place was pretty effective, but they had the largest outside the continental United States shipyard that we built from scratch in this atoll. Oh, according to Tim, get a ticket on the way in. According to Tim from Kidd, I know that we received a radar kit from another Fletcher that was going to be sent back to the United States. So they lifted everything over from one ship and brought it over to Cassin Young. Kid believes that it's from them. I have nothing to prove it was or wasn't, but it makes sense because I do know that they took a radar and other parts off of one of the Fletchers that was heading back to the United States. So you can see there
And Buzz, that
the
actually
radar
comes from
kits.
one of your crew members.
Excuse me?
That actually comes from one of your crew members.
Okay.
Peter Byram was a bosun's mate for you guys.
Oh, okay.
He's the one that passed that story on.
Okay. I'll have to make a note of that because that's another connection with our mafiosi here. That
There you go.
your ship actually helped our ship. So one of the sidelines that we found from a diary from one of our sailors is that the crew of Cassin Young thought they were going home, just like some of the other ships that were damaged. They'd had enough. They'd been out for over a year. No port calls, nothing other than combat. So the yardbirds were working on the ship during the day. The crew was throwing their tools over the side at night.
Really?
Yeah, that's what the diary says. And then the commander of Aleutian came aboard and basically grabbed them all together and said the next one's going to get an Article 15 court-martial. It's going to stop, and it's going to stop right now. So they sent in divers. The divers recovered all the tools, and they fixed the Cassin Young, got it back in operation, and sent it back up to Okinawa. So
wait a second. Wait a second. So they're at Ulithi after the Kamikaze hit. And like you said, they've had no breaks to speak of, no ports of call or anything. So they've basically been on the run for a year, over a year. So they're tired, they're worn out, right? And they it's like,
oh yeah.
So when they weren't sent home with some of these other Fletchers, the crew kind of got fed up.
Yeah, sailors are sailors. They always find a way for making things happen or making things not happen. They had gotten into Ulithi before, like that time that they did some, repairs and some repainting, but that's not the same as, going back to Pearl Harbor. We're pulling into one of the places that's got some recreation, if you will. They were out from early 1944 to April of 45 when they got hit that time.
Jeez.
So, and then right back up to Okinawa, because that's, Commander Ailes, there's a war on. We're going to participate and do our best. So that's what they did. So back up at Okinawa, they did move them down to a different picket area. Now they put them down on position 8. Which was down by what's called now Buckner Bay, which is the south end of Okinawa. And the Japanese had figured out that that's closest to some of the landing beaches, so they started going around the island and coming in from the south end. But they needed a navigator to get them there. So on this particular attack, what they've recorded is that they had 2 of these, if you can see it on the screen, willow cloth and wood biplane trainers with a bomb on board being guided out there by a Betty bomber. One of the Navy fighters shot down the Betty. It's been argued that there was never a second Willow, but some other ships have claimed that they saw the plane go down. Regardless, this particular one came up from the stern following the wake of the ship. Because it's cloth and wood, it's kind of difficult to pick up on radar. And they didn't spot it until the very end because it's 3 a.m. in the morning. You're not at general quarters the whole time that you're out there. So they spotted the plane. He was about 75 feet off the deck. Commander Ailes ordered a hard turn to starboard to try to bring the guns to bear because he's so low. Most of them couldn't depress that much. And by the time he turned to starboard, the plane took a left. And you can see where it hit right at the motor whaleboat, right midships by the #1 stack. It went through that boat and onto the main deck, and the bomb exploded. It killed everybody in the forward fire room, all 8 men. 3 got out, but they died very shortly thereafter. They had wounded all over the place, killed all over the ship. That prospective commanding officer, Commander Wallace, was in the wardroom passageway coming out of the captain's day cabin. Those of you who are familiar with the Fletcher know where that is. And he got just outside the cabin when the explosion hit. And for all practical purposes, killed him right there on the passageway. A lot of people out on the deck. As you can see in the corner here, it says they had 1 missing. They never found his body. They only found his life jacket. 21 were killed and another 45 wounded.
Let me interrupt you here because you gave me, and I just had it up here a few moments ago. Hold on a second. I want to you gave me a pretty interesting picture because where this willow hits, I think corresponds with this picture here. And
actually, yes, it does.
Can you
right
point out
that bag? If you see that bag, you can see the 2 boat davits with a boat behind it.
Yeah.
That's where it hit, on the main deck right there.
Okay. And then I think you also provide, well, here, hold on a second. Picture 47. Where's, shoot.
Yep, there you go. That is some of the damage.
But I thought there was another photo you gave me. I'm not fine. I'm sorry for interrupting, but some of the photos,
okay.
all the photos you sent are really fascinating stuff. But then when you look at some of the diagram on picture 44, this guy right here. So at the bottom, you can see the willow kind of comes up from the stern, which is probably a good attacking position. And then at the last minute makes this left-hand turn into the Cassin Young, right? And then you've got this picture that you provided. And I like, and Shane does this a lot with some of his videos, kind of telling a story with the photographs. And so that's why I was asking the question. So when you see this picture here, it's a beautiful photo, obviously not of the damage, but it kind of gives you the perspective of like where the plane may have hit. Can you also point out where can you, Shane or Buzz, can you see the captain's day cabin from here?
Yeah, it probably.
Actually, yes. If
yeah, go ahead, Buzz.
Yeah, if you see that life raft, it's right behind, on the main deck, behind that bulkhead, under that life raft.
Oh, so it would have been right there.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. And then going back to the, okay, so all right, so now that I've got that question answered, then some of these other pictures, like number 45 here, which I had up earlier, this is actually from some of that damage, correct? What is this actually?
That's the first kamikaze attack.
Oh, sorry. Okay, then
the air search radar.
Okay, there it is. That's on the 01 level, the one deck up. That's the forward stack. You can see the forward torpedo rack right behind it. But all of that area, you can see it's all torn open, blackened from the fires. They've jury-rigged a ladder going up to the bridge because that original one was destroyed. They had no way to get off the bridge after this hit because the Fletchers only have one ladder that goes from the 01 level up to the bridge. So that was one of the after-action reports from Commander Ailes, is to add a second ladder so they can get off. He was actually wounded in this attack as well. He was out in the bridge wing on the starboard side when the explosion happened. But one of the other pictures you put up that's taken a little bit lower is actually a good shot to see how much damage was in that area. There you go.
Is this the one?
These guys, yep. To the right is the forward boat davit. but the boat's now destroyed and thrown over the side. You can see there's a hatch behind the sailor in the middle that's bent over backwards. He's got a really light dungaree shirt on, and he's facing to the right. That's the passageway into the wardroom in the captain's day cabin.
Okay.
Right above those two sailors, you can see there's a watertight door that would lead into the chart house and radio central.
Yep.
That was damaged by shrapnel. People were wounded in radio central, and there was an electrical fire in there. And down in the lower left, it looks like a ball cap, so that's probably an officer doing what officers do best. I should know. I used to be one. That's
Standing around
the damage. Yeah, that's
Never
a
goes-
lot of damage.
Yeah. There was hold on a second here. Let me jump over to this photo here. I didn't understand what this was.
It's sideways.
Is it?
You need to rotate.
That's why.
That's the
All right.
searchlight.
I apologize.
Oh, it's
Okay.
a gun club.
Damn it.
No, it's a searchlight platform.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see
There
it
it is.
now. Okay. I'm sorry, guys. So basically, what happens is whenever we do this, I get a bunch of
Go for it, Connor.
I get a bunch of pictures from, like, in this case, Buzz or Shane or Connor will send me a bunch of pictures, and I do my best to upload them, but this was my fault. So when we look at this picture here, I should have rotated this 90 degrees to the left.
Yeah.
I see the searchlight. Okay, now I understand what it is.
Yeah,
And it's
if you
blown
look
the
at it, you
decking
see all
right
the
off the
you see all the shrapnel holes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I was going to say, I've never seen a fan that big on a Fletcher-class.
It made no sense to me. And then hold on a second. There was another picture here. I did not know what this was. And if it related to that second attack.
All of those pictures were from the second attack. Now I'm trying to think of where that one came from.
Hold on
That's
a
either
second
the
here.
fantail or the bow. I can't tell though.
Like, okay, so this is damage from the second hit.
Yes. Yep. And
let me
You
zoom
can
in
see
here.
the Yardbirds and the other people working on it down in the lower right. They're actually got the torches out to start cutting away metal. All
There's
I can
that
picture
searchlight
is
in the
because
top right corner.
yes,
Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, there it is. Yeah, I see it now.
I'm thinking they were laying that canvas over the large hole that was in the deck to
Hold
try
on
and
a
keep the
second.
weather out because it was kind of blown open.
Oh yeah, I can see that. You can kind of see
Sure.
something. Yeah, that'd be a good
I
guess.
don't know. That actually that access hatch looks like it's on the bow. I don't know. I can't see enough of it, but that type of hatch is nowhere. Actually, there's the one that would go to the boiler room, but that was blown away. So I'm not sure.
No, that's
Can't-
one of the deck hatches on the
Nah,
bow or
I
the
must have
stern.
grabbed a bad one.
All right, so hold
Yeah.
on a second here, and I find this kind of stuff fascinating. And Shane and I have had many conversations about, like, photo detective work and everything like that. So, do you guys spend a lot of your time on these ships when you see photos like this? And we even had Tim. What was that? We had a couple episodes ago where you guys were talking about a like a practice loader or something like that, practice gun loader. And you and Shane, you're talking about, it's like, yeah, that could be this and that. So do you spend a lot of your time during the day kind of like, oh, here's a photo I've never seen before, let me see if I can find this on the ship?
Not every day, but yeah, my friends make fun of me because I can look at a picture of a ship and tell, of a destroyer at least, and go, oh, that's a Fletcher, that's a Benson, that's a Gearing, that sort of thing. Because you look at little details like that and you figure out what it is. And I'm sure Shane does exactly the same thing.
Yeah, it's even if you think you've seen everything, like just this year alone, I've gotten new collections of our ships in service. So you're seeing something new that's a primary source document. It's not at the National Archives. It's not at the Library of Congress. It was just in someone's attic, and then they passed away. So those photos haven't really been seen before, and so it really gives you a unique perspective. And I love doing that sort of stuff too.
Well, and I think a lot of people do too, because here, case in point, all right, let's go to Michael's comment here. All right. So he could say, looks like a parachute. And for me, I'd agree with him, because look at all these. It looks like there's parachute lines coming off of this thing. But you guys are saying, no, probably not a parachute.
It could be.
I was just thinking the same thing.
I mean, okay, so yeah, it could be. All right. So
Brian's comment right below it is like the detective work, right? You see that hatch leading down to CPO and the head and anchor windlass there in the lower part of and then you can see the shadows from the 5-inch 51, and then he comments on the back that you can see the life raft stanchions, I think.
Well, no, hold on a second. In this picture, you can see the hatch on the bow.
That's there at the bottom to the right of center. It's either the bow or it's the fantail, one of the two.
Right.
There's only two hatches like that.
Right.
Okay. And then going to his next comment here. See, this is the kind of stuff I absolutely love, and I'm glad Buzz provided so many comments, even though I gave him so much crap for sending, or so many photos, even though I gave him so much crap for sending me all these photos. But then this is where the interesting for me. This is where the interest, and this is where I want you guys to tell me. So Brian has this comment here. In the top left, you can see the supports for the life raft that's outside the wardroom. Is he referring to this picture here? Or was he talking about...
Look between the sailors on the very left top. You see 3 poles, or 2 poles sticking up.
Yeah.
On the rail.
See, right now it's covered by the number 43 and then the live 56 minutes.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so...
But if they can see that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Just,
By
just
the
to
way,
throw something,
I take credit
throw
for
something
that
out
'cause I
there.
helped train him.
You what? Go ahead, Tim. What did you say?
I said I take credit for Brian because I helped train him. He's one of ours.
Oh, you know this guy? Oh, all right. That's like cheating. Okay.
He's one of ours. Good
Bag
job.
drop,
Brian.
bag drop.
You can see him on our channel on High Seas History getting pummeled by waves.
Oh yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make a little bit of a leap here.
Go ahead.
I'm looking at the faces. Okay, look at the way everybody's looking. Their heads are down. There's nobody smiling at all. I think this is the casualty collection point for the KIAs, because they would have been brought to the ward room, which is right behind here, right by the stanchions that they were talking about. And when they went back after getting hit, they went to Karamaretto, the island. And that's where everybody was brought ashore and buried ashore. I got a feeling this may be the collection for the KIAs. I can't swear to it. I don't know, but I've seen enough people that for my weird and varied career, I've seen that look. It just looks to me like they're looking at their shipmates.
Well, you might actually have a very good point here, because if they were just doing some kind of standard repair or maintenance or something like that, all these other people standing around in the background would probably get yelled at, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So to your point, if it's to cover up the dead, then you've got people standing around in the background paying their respects. Yeah, you might. Yeah, I think
that's my thoughts.
Yeah.
So anyway,
yeah, on that happy thought.
Okay.
There was hold on a second here. I had one more question. Oh no, you answered it. Okay. You about the so I just had that photograph sideways, which was this guy right here. That's the searchlight. Yep. Okay. All right. Where do you want to take us next?
Well, just on a good note, remember where I talked about Commander Schreiber, the drill master? How upset they were at the drill, practice. Forward boiler room on the ship is knocked out. Forward engine room is knocked out. the starboard side propeller shaft is dislodged. The ship is on fire. They have
Oops.
flooding from broken water lines, broken fire lines. They've lost electricity. The ship was back underway with fires out, flooding stopped, casualties being treated in 40 minutes from this hit. Yeah,
Wow.
40 minutes. It's just awesome damage control.
So they were just running
moved on
down
one screw.
Sorry.
One screw. Oh,
Yeah, aft fire room, aft engine room, everything was cross-connected. And back to Ulithi from Karamaretto, where they did some repair. Ulithi did some more repair, but still on one screw, all the way to Pearl Harbor on one screw, and then all the way to San Pedro, California on one screw. It was a long, slow ride. And the war ended 2 weeks later after this hit. So they were halfway back to the States when the war ended. So Commander Ailes was relieved back in San Pedro by Lieutenant Commander Pfeiffer, who managed to get the ship fully repaired at San Pedro and then decommissioned. They earned 7 battle stars during the war. The Carolines, Asiatic Pacific Raids, Lady Ops, Luzon Ops, Iwo Jima Ops, and Okinawa Ops. She was mothballed in San Pedro, and then when the Korean War broke out, they needed more destroyers to keep an eye on the Soviets. So she was brought out in 1951, did a couple of med cruises. They brought her to the East Coast, did an around the world cruise, did some duty off of Korea, enforcing the ceasefire, which is why you see the NATO and the Korean service medals on our board up on the bridge. And then the reason she's in Boston is she was upgraded 5 times in Boston when she was part of the Atlantic Fleet. As we discussed earlier, the only one that was built in Boston was the Charette, another Fletcher, and she's over in Greece as the Velos. So the ship happened to be in Philadelphia. This is when what she looked like when she arrived in Boston. So it took them 2 years to clean it up, remove a lot of gear that is unnecessary as a museum, get it all cleaned up, repainted, and opened up in 1973. One of our volunteers was part of the first volunteer crew, and he's been there ever since. We've got about 25 volunteers on paper, a small group that does nothing but tours and interpretation. The rest, around 18, 20 of us, we call them wrench turners. We do a lot of the maintenance as much as we can. This is one of our volunteers here cleaning up a foam proportioning unit that it took us 10 years to find, courtesy of our museum ship fleet. It truly is a one fleet operation. We all have to help each other out, and we do. I'm really pleased with interacting and helping out each other.
And
we do
and
have
for those
one
of
maintenance
you,
ranger aboard.
you know, for those of you that think it's easy work for these guys and volunteers, there's a picture, because we've had Buzz on before talking about the Cassin Young earlier, and this picture here that I want to pull up here, kind of shows that, when it comes to maintaining these ships, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Do you remember giving me this picture from before?
No.
Oh, you
I don't
don't?
think it came from me. I think that's from Texas.
I don't think so.
I'm not sure.
Because I have this in a file from you, so maybe I'm wrong.
Okay.
But I look at pictures like this,
Oh,
or
yeah.
the volunteers that you guys have, whether it's the Sullivans or the Slater, or in this case the Cassin Young, or I'm sure Connor has them over there at the Alexander Henry, and Tim at the Kid. It's hard work.
Mm-hmm.
So I when I see pictures,
we're at it year round too. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a great
we've
example.
Got one mate and go ahead.
Sorry, Buzz. It's a great example. I've been working closely with Buzz and Tim about the decking in the wardroom on our Fletchers and what the procedure was to do some preservation, stabilization work, and then restorative work as well. And I've been working with them for the past few months now, just getting their thoughts on the work that they've done, how they did it. And yeah, I mean, Buzz always ends his email with one fleet usually. So that's a great testament.
I stole that from Tim.
Oh God, then I should be thanking Tim. Thanks, Tim. But no, like that's a great example. Like once a week.
I steal.
I didn't catch that from Tim. I'm sorry.
Oh, I said most of the stuff you hear me say, I steal. I steal from the best. Yeah, usually I'm stealing from Rizzuto.
Perfect. Yeah, nothing wrong with stealing.
I learned a long time ago we don't call it stealing. It's known as benchmarking in the Air Force.
Appropriation. We appropriated it.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
Let's see.
Midnight requisition.
And in the same token, in September to Boston and to Buffalo, these two guys were helping me get ready for dry dock to do a major restoration to our stewards mates location. So I was able to look at how they're set up, and then Buzz and I did a little horse trading for a couple of items, which shall remain unnamed. And yeah, we all help each other.
Yeah.
Just my last closing thing here is every museum has to pick a period. You can't cover everything, especially when you've got a ship like ours that went through so many changes over so many years. So the park has decided that they have to pick between 1958 and 59 as the years what the ship looks like and how it functions and all that. Many of these changes, like I said, were done in Boston. Some of them were done out in the Pacific during the war. But the way the ship looks right now is a classic Cold War destroyer that would do escort duties, chasing Russian subs around port calls in the Mediterranean, enforcing the peace off of Korea. So my last part is that we always get asked, why can't we return it to World War II? Because so much of its history is involved in that period. And it's simply too expensive, number one. We get asked all the time, you're not going to be able to find enough twin 40 millimeters to put on. You're not going to find another depth charge rack and depth charges. You're not going to find 6 more 20 millimeter Orlicons. It's just impossible to find the stuff, let alone display it. I'd love to get one of these, by the way, but just to display like we do the 120 millimeter we have. It's not in the original location. It's just on the stern, so we can show people one of the anti-aircraft weapons.
I think the Slater might have.
Tim has a warehouse.
If you've got a couple 3-inch 50s, Buzz, we'll give you a couple twin Beaufort mounts.
Yeah.
You know, you actually make a good point, because we had Ryan Szymanski on several months ago, and we kind of, or I think he brought up the same point, that a lot of visitors are disappointed when they don't see the ship in black and white from World War II, right? You know, so they come on the ship and they'll see like a Pepsi machine from like the late 1960s, and so Ryan said, well, that's history too. You know, that's the battleship New Jersey in the late 1960s, and that's history too. So in order to set it up like you want to see it in black and white from World War II, we'd have to eliminate all this history that occurred since then. And of course, like you pointed out a few moments ago, there's a tremendous cost if you wanted to do that. But so you guys decided to take the ship from, what did you say, 1954?
58 to 59.
58 to
she
59.
Was, yeah, she was recommissioned in 51 and then decommissioned for the second time in 1960 and then brought down to Philadelphia and mothballed. And when the Navy Yard closed during the BRAC era, then the National Park Service took over most of the property and wanted to have a ship that was built there, but something small enough that was manageable. As the guys with the battleships know, or even the cruiser, like with Shane, it's incredibly difficult to maintain big ships. So they actually started looking around, and the only ship of a destroyer size was the Velos, and Greece is not going to give it up. So they looked around. Okay, well, Cassin Young is here in Philly, was upgraded 5 times at the yard, and basically sold. We'll take that one. On paper, the Navy still owns the ship wholly. There's a memorandum of understanding / contract to the Department of the Interior National Park Service that they're required to maintain it and keep it in a condition which looks favorably upon the U.S. Navy and for recruiting. It's in great shape, I think, for her age. We still have Navy folks that come aboard regularly. I know a lot of us do the Chiefs Heritage Weeks, where the newly hatched chiefs come aboard and learn about the ships. We're lucky because we have Constitution right across the pier. So they go to the Constitution, they come to us. We have the Navy War College and a lot of the schools down in Newport. So the Senior Enlisted Academy comes up regularly, almost every 4 weeks, and goes through the ship. We try to get as many of the Navy folks that get into the yard on board and try to show them where they came from, what the old Navy, you always hear the old sailors talk about, in the old days, in my Navy, that type of thing. And they love to get into engineering. And we had a sonar operator from a Burke class that says we still use this machine. It's just solid state, not tubes. So that part a lot of us really, really enjoy, is getting the active duty folks in there. The public's always been great. A lot of good questions. We get them from all over the world because of Constitution. Our visitor numbers go way up because of that. It is crazy numbers some weekends, but we do the best we can with what we've got. And our one maintenance ranger that's there 5 days a week, real self-serving guy. Stevie does a great job of painting and patching and cleaning, and then we come in 2 days a week and mess everything up that he cleaned up. So, but that's about all I had for actual presentation. I see, not bad. I'm only 12 minutes over.
Well, no, I thought it was fantastic, and you answered a lot of my questions about some of those photos. Because, like I said a few moments ago, you supplied like a ton of photos, and when I first got the email, I'm going, "Oh, Buzz, what are you doing?" and I'm downloading these things, and I'm going, "What is this guy doing?" And then as we're going through these photos, and hold on a second here, I got to pull some of these back up, and then all of a sudden we're doing some of that detective work again, so this is where obviously I screwed up with this one here, but you see some of these pictures, like for example this photo here. All right, you pointed out these two sailors at the bottom are standing below a watertight hatch above them, right? And where the heck was that? Oh, it was in 50. Okay, so if I go to 50, and in the upper left-hand corner, is that the same hatch?
Yes.
It is.
Yep, and you can see the jury-rig ladder that they put up so they can get up to the bridge.
Yeah.
In both those pictures. So it's not a standard metal ladder. It's something they jury-rig so they could get the folks down from there so they could treat them to the wounded and then actually operate the ship.
So to be able to make connections like that, because back then you didn't have iPhones where you had, or digital cameras where you could take endless amounts of photos. You had a roll of film and that was it. So to see pictures like this and be able to tie them together, I get a kick out of this. So I appreciate you presenting all of this to us. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, these were actually taken by Dr. Savezma. Commander Schreiber gave him a good camera and says, "You are my ship's photographer." And I'm just jumping to a conclusion. Well, where's the film? Well, that's on use. He didn't buy him any film, just gave him the camera. So these pictures actually came out of Dr. Savezma's family. They gave it to the park, and they have it in their archives, and their curatorial person allows us to use this with permission. So this is stuff that doesn't make it out into the world. It came from a sailor that was on board when all of this craziness happened.
CC had a question here about the Cassin Young being open all year long, but unfortunately I need to bow out. I'm going to hand it over to Connor. But Buzz, I want to thank you for sending all this stuff over and walking us through the history of the Cassin Young. Before I sign off, I'm going to say Happy New Year's, everybody. Happy New Year to Buzz for bringing the Cassin Young to us. And Connor, you ready to take over?
Yeah, sure.
All right, man. I'm handing it over to you. You guys have a great one.
Hey, have fun. Good luck tonight.
Take care.
Here, Ken.
So to answer Cece, we're open usually 5 days a week from Memorial Day to Veterans Day. And that's usually Monday we're closed, or Monday and Tuesday we're closed. Right now, technically, we're closed to the public because of the weather. The ice and snow and stuff in the winter gets really treacherous. The park provides seasonal rangers during that open period, and they all have to go back to college in the September-October timeframe. So right now, we get open for special events, like we did Pearl Harbor Day this past month. We have a couple of the volunteers that open up on their own, but it's never guaranteed. It's all based on weather and availability. The park doesn't provide rangers except for the special events. They opened up for school vacation week this week, but because of the weather, they've only been able to open on Sunday. Yesterday was pretty bad. We had rain off and on, and some of the paint that they've been using is glossy, so it gets kind of slippery. And we don't want to have anybody slip and get hurt. It's bad enough with us on board that we have to watch ourselves. But we get the visitors on board, and one of them takes a tumble, then it creates a whole lot of paperwork. So, yeah. As you know, Shane, it happens. It does happen, but we try to minimize it. But once the ice happens, some days we don't even go on board. It's just not worth it. It's a volunteer gig. The park does cover us with workman's comp, but I don't want to use it. It's a volunteer gig. I'm old. I'm ugly. And I'm really jealous of Shane with that derby on his hat. If I'd have known, I'd have brought up mine from downstairs, but one of my fancy lids.
I'm sorry, I should let you know. That's
I'm
great.
impressed.
Yeah. I love the derby. You love it too. That's great. Yeah, we're closed.
I've got a couple of fedoras that I wear.
Oh, nice. Sweet.
Okay.
We'll go get one.
I'd have to unplug my mic and my earphones and go downstairs. So,
yeah, a lot of times
next
people
time.
ask
Next time.
we're open, if we're open during the winter. I always try to advocate for depends on the weather, but we never do that because, a lot of times some of our part-time staff are not there during the winter and we have to call them in or something to open the gift shop or something like that. So I think even though I've been advocating, and others do, it's not just me, but, advocating to, if it's going to be a 50-degree day, why not open? Well, that means we have to call in all the people to run the cash registers and, all that stuff. And so I think it might be just something that we just don't do. But, as some people know, maybe they don't, it was 60 degrees here in Buffalo on Christmas Day. So like our warmer weather is getting pushed through December. So it's something that we should consider, not closing around Thanksgiving, but maybe closing the second week of December or something like that, because weather is changing, so.
Still too cold here.
Yeah, for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I looked at your 20 degrees earlier today.
Yep.
Wow. In the morning or all day?
When I looked, I was looking at all y'all, what the temperature was at all y'all's locations. Connors was 20 degrees around 10 a.m., 11 a.m., something like that.
Yeah, that's about right.
Wow.
Yeah, it's going to be a little warmer tomorrow. Oh, yeah, it's actually going to be above tomorrow, but then it jumps right back down. So, yeah, I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, so what do you have? Hey, Buzz, what do you have? Do you still have, and I got to get out to Boston to visit you guys, but do you still have the quintuple torpedo tubes, both of them or one of them, or you probably just have the one?
Yeah, it's just the one. What they did is in the 50s, they took the forward torpedo rack out and put in quad 40s in their place.
Right. And you're still looking for twin 40s? Twin?
No, they'd never let me put any of this stuff on. You know, even that headshot, not headshot, even that K gun, I'd have to jump through so many hoops to try and get permission to even put it on the ship. So
that's a good year for you. Like that's something I'm still trying to figure out with the Sullivans because it's just a mismatch of stuff. But the architecture, one of the great things about having Tim there was I have not seen the kid. I have not seen the Cassin Young. So it's got to be a trip sometime soon that I take to see your configurations. And that would really help me decide on a year, which we've never done here. So it's something I have to do.
Yeah. Well, jump on one of the planes, come on down. Doesn't matter whether we're open or working on a weekend. If you happen to come down on a weekday, let us know. I have the keys.
Great. So, all right. That's awesome. Thank you.
But it's a good 7 or 8 hours.
Yeah, Tuesdays and Saturdays we're usually there, but for somebody special that we'll probably pick your pocket for something. As Tim knows, that's what we do best.
It's great. Hey, we're happy to be flying the rooster flag today. I did a short video on the YouTube channel about that earlier in the day today. It was a little tenuous getting up there, but with our slick weather and stuff. But we're happy to do it, and we'll leave it up all week.
Yeah, we were going to do it Tuesday, but the weather here was so bad, none of us went in, and so we put it up yesterday, and we'll take her back down and put it into storage until next year on Tuesday when we're in. So we decided to put it up right off the main halyard below our Navy unit commendation pennant. So
nice.
That's a high point. It's not going to get caught on anything. And so it looks good. Tim and Parks got that done for us. Oh, it looks great. We're actually, one of the associations is working on some coats for us for the winter because the nylon 3 seasons don't really work well because we have a 4th season called winter. So we're having that rooster made into a small patch, which will go on the jacket. And then the ship's patch, that crazy Cassin Young patch that he showed earlier on the left side of the coat.
Nice.
So we're working on that. So, but the story behind that, all we've ever been able to find out is like nose art on fighters and bombers. They ended up getting an artist, probably in Ulithi. That would be my guess, that the guy came on and painted the rooster on the stack. And it's a fighting rooster. They used to do, cockfights. They still do illegally around the country, but they put that up in the stack. And it had some additions onto it that we don't show anymore. It was classic World War II, and we just can't do that now.
Yeah.
So the white spot out at the bottom.
Speaking of that, Lego History Sam, you asked where you can get those flags from. If you email us at the Kid, Parks will put you in touch with the supplier that put them together for all of us.
So for your pirate flag, you sell those in the gift shop.
Yes.
Right. So if you want one of those awesome,
we normally bought Yeah, we normally bought just regular pirate flags, skull and crossbones that are carried by various vendors. Parks really likes these specific historic type flags that he finds, and so he talked to one of these flag places that basically does custom jobs, and he sent him a picture of our pirate flag from 43 when they first commissioned the ship, launched the ship, first brought her across New York Harbor, and it looks a little different from the standard pirate flag, and they put together a really nice rendition of it, and so we're selling that in the gift shop now.
Oh, very cool. We do have a question for Buzz. Yeah, sorry. We have a question for Buzz. How close are you to the Constitution? And is it possible to see both in a single day?
We are about a matter of yards away, or meters, depending upon where you're from. We're on one side of the pier. They are kitty corner across on the same pier. And yes, you can see both in the same day, providing we're both open. Normally, Constitution is closing Mondays and Tuesdays. It is an active duty ship, so they have to do their training to maintain the qualifications. They keep using acronyms. I have to stop doing that. But we try to follow their schedule as well. So before we closed for the season, we were closing Mondays and Tuesdays, which works great for us on the maintenance crew. We don't have to worry about shipping and making noise and stuff with visitors roaming around. We've got one guy that's a needle gun and crazy man, and he's doing a great job on the 51 handling room right now, getting rid of all the damaged paint that we got from steam leaks. So it's coming along nicely, but it's nice not having to work around around visitors, but it's great to be working around visitors. Double-sided sword. But yeah, you can do both real easily. If you're coming out for, say, a week, you can also go down to the USS Salem in Quincy, which is a light cruiser, the last light cruiser around in the world. And then you go further south down to Battleship Cove, and they've got a USS Massachusetts battleship. They've got a USS Kennedy, which is a Gearing destroyer. And the name of the sub is escaping me, but there's a World War II fleet boat down there.
Lionfish, right?
Lionfish.
Lionfish.
Correct. Yes, that's it. So you could make a whole period of it, and if you want to make a railroad trip, then you drive up to Buffalo. See those gang up there when they're open. So
you just described my September.
Yes, yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
Isn't there
Except
a
for Salem. I miss Salem.
Isn't there a replica of the Mayflower nearby there too? I'm trying to remember.
Yes. Yeah, it's closed for the season, and it's down in Mystic Seaport for maintenance, and then it'll come back up, and that'll be in the town of Plymouth,
right?
Which is south of Boston, heading toward Cape Cod. And if you really want to get the full tourist experience, you go look at the alleged Plymouth Rock, which we commonly call around here the Plymouth Pebble. And we'd like to stand around and watch the tourists look inside and go, what the heck is that? Oh,
well, it's been around.
Plymouth's a good take.
Yeah, it's eroded.
Yeah. And the first thing they did when they got off the boat is they chipped 1620 into it, or 1460 or something like that. Whatever the date is, I'm not into that period. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff in the area historical. You've also got Bunker Hill, Lexington and Concord, or Concord for you that live down in Louisiana. So, but yeah, we call it Concord. Louisiana.
Nice.
Yeah, a little tickle. I used to work at Fort Polk a lot down in Louisiana, and one of the photographers was a Cajun. Yep, he a Cajun guy. Character. We worked several rotations down there, and he says, I'm going home and going Louisiana ice fishing. And I'm up north. I know what ice fishing is. And I said, what are you talking about? And he goes, yeah, you just sit in your chair, you flip the top off the cooler and reach down into the bottom of them ice cold beers and drag one out.
Nice. I love that. That's great.
I loved it. This guy was great. We had a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's nice.
Like it.
If you were at Polk, you were probably about 25 miles away from where I grew up. I grew up out in the Piney Woods.
Did you get all tingly there, Buzz? Did you get?
Yeah. I was crazy enough. I did 13 rotations down there. 2 as a player out in the woods, and then the rest of them were as a trainer, observer controller, trainer, mentor, whatever you want to call it. I actually liked it because that was my Air Force specialty. I was training folks.
How far back was that? What years?
Ooh. Late 90s.
Late 90s?
That was down. Yeah, late 90s. Yeah,
Did
trying
you
to
run into the
backtrack.
wild horses?
The wild who?
Did you run into the wild horses on the military reservation?
Oh yes.
There?
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. We used to set up out in what they call Geronimo, which is a dirt runway, and they were always out there when we first set up. But yeah, saw them.
He literally ran into them.
It happens. It does,
Yeah,
and they're protected. So.
Yeah, I believe.
Yeah, they're protected, and we were landing C-130s and C-17s out there, so they usually would take off, and get out of there. Too noisy.
Yeah.
Hey guys, do you want to? I'd like to kind of very briefly, but we still have some people on, and we're kind of wrapping up the 80th anniversary of the 4 remaining Fletchers and the USS Johnston. And does anyone have any questions about any of the 4 Fletchers remaining, or do you guys have any thoughts on the year that it was, or what we could do for the 81st or maybe the 85th? That sort of thing. It'd be interesting. I'd love to hear what people had to think about the year-long celebrations and of the anniversaries.
Yeah. We'll see what they say. I will say, or not will say, but I will ask, did any of you guys hear anything else on the Velos? I know she had an incident between our last show and this show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last thing I heard was that she had been moved into a protected harbor to get some repairs done, but I have not heard anything since.
One of our guys on Museum Ships, who is a Greek, says apparently the news was basically deciding to turn some naval officers into a scapegoat, but I haven't heard anything else since.
I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, it seems like news for Velos is always very late.
I saw a Facebook post.
Go ahead.
I saw a Facebook post where they've got the stern patched, but she's going into a dry dock for extensive maintenance.
Okay.
And that was, I believe, this week. Somebody posted it, I think, on the Museum Ships page that they copied from a post from over in Greece.
Okay. Oh, here's a question from Lego History Sam. Will we do one about the USS Laffey for its 80th and being attacked by the Kamikazes? That'd be a question.
I had mentioned on the phone to Ken that if he wanted to continue this with the Sumners and the Gearings, I think it would be fairly easy to do so because we know different folks, each of us at the Gearings and the Sumners. I don't know anybody over at Laffey per se, but I do know folks over at Kennedy, and I think they would be very excited to jump in on this sort of format. So I would be up for talking about it.
I would be too. I grew up as a kid watching History Channel documentaries, and there's at least 3 or 4 of them that feature the Laffey, so I was quite familiar with the story of Laffey. So I would love to. I didn't even know she was a museum until like 2014, believe it or not. Yeah,
I know a former crewman. We got a guy I shoot with on the Civil War team that was a crew on the Laffey.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Probably after the war, but he's very proud of serving on that ship.
Yeah. She's a unique, one of a kind ship. And just as an aside,
Last one left.
I'm sorry, what? Oh yeah, last of her kind.
She's the last Sumner left. Yeah.
And that kind of just brings something up too. Is one thing I am a little jealous of for you guys is you guys can all cross talk with each other. Like, oh, my ship is like this, my ship's like that, oh, like this. And there is almost unlimited information about the Fletchers comparatively. But for me, Henry's more or less the last of her type, like from that period. There's one left that's active, if I remember correctly, and that's the Polar Prince these days. But she's been modernized to oblivion to the point that you can barely tell they were sisters at one point. Well, half sisters. So one thing I am a little jealous of that. And we did talk about the age, or not age, but like at what period we restore our ships to. Yeah, it's like you mentioned lack of parts for the Cassin Young, but for me, they're like I said, one ship. So I got to keep her to 85 because that's what she was when she was retired. So, but yeah, I would love to
know, Connor, about that is that you can engage with all of the sailors that were on similar ships, right? All of the Coast Guard people that served. I don't know how many was there, just how many were in the class the Alexander Henry was in, you know, and so we kind of embraced that with the Little Rock. Last of her class, nothing else like her in the world. So we're going to outreach to people that served on her sister ships and maybe doing that with the Alexander Henry if that hasn't been done already. You know, the other Coast Guard vessels would really bring in a different, well-rounded story to complement yours being the last. You can engage with her sister ship sailors and crew and things like that, and that would be a really exciting prospect if that's all true.
Yeah, if there was a reach out to those old sailors, then it was done by Kingston, the museum that owned the Henry before our museum. And I'll need to follow. We've had a few of her former crew kind of trickle in over time and give testimonies and stuff like that. But yeah, that's actually a good idea. How many ships were in her class? Well, here's the thing.
If there is a class.
Yeah, so like I say, I call them half sisters because there was a basic design, and as a result, every shipyard went with a different philosophy. There's one that's steam powered. So there's one that was steam. So the Wolf. So every one of them, like Henry was 30 feet shorter than her immediate sister, the Gilbert, and this one was different than this one. So like there were some modifications. So as each one was built, they all had improvements on the previous one. So things like that. So it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see what I can dig up out of that. Like I said, the Canadian Coast Guard is a little different than a Navy, so I kind of get my way around that in general. But yeah, like just be glad that there's 4 of them. Like there could be only one or only pieces of one. Like there's no Brooklyns, there's no any of the earlier destroyers, nothing like that.
Yeah.
Like it could be a lot worse.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We also got a recommendation from Pat about doing more about the gearing class. So
yeah, I would be up for that. I'd be up for. There's what, 5 left?
2 in the States. There was one in South Korea, but they just cut her up, from what I understand. I think there's one in Taiwan still, and one in Turkey.
Yeah,
but
so
I'm not sure. 4 or 5. I'm not sure if there's a second one in South Korea. I'd have to go back and look.
Well, not to shill, but you can always check museumships.us, which has one of the most complete collections of museum ships listed there. Totally not advertising.
Now that you say that, yes, there is a second gearing in South Korea. Well, now she's the only gearing in South Korea, but there were 2, so now there's 1. So South Korea, Turkey, and Taiwan. So yeah, there's at least 5 out there.
Yes. Okay, I found her. Yeah, there's one left. Former USS Rogers, DD-876.
I agree with Michael Phillips. Shill that website.
Yes.
Put it out there. It's a great resource.
It is. For anyone who isn't aware, I'm on the team for the Transportation Museum at Thunder Bay, but one of my things is one of the admins for the museumships.us website as well as their Facebook. So I work with that quite a bit as well. So that was actually how me and Johnette first met.
Okay.
Gotcha. And Lego History Sam wants to come on. There's Ken and History X. The Vikings must be losing if he is commenting. Sorry about that, Ken. You must already be in a bad mood, against those cheeseheads. I don't know what to say. Lego History Sam would love to come on Museum Ship Mafia. He's a guy that I met in Waterloo. So he works tangentially. He worked at the Sullivan Brothers Iowa Veterans Museum, and he builds a lot of ships out of Legos. And so, I mean, he and I can connect. If something that, so send me an email, and then we can connect about that. But he's a pretty passionate guy, and he's here every time we're on. So
Another person I'd love to get on at some point is Karen from the Wisconsin Maritime Museum with the Kobaya.
Oh, yeah, you said Kobaya, yeah.
Yeah, Kobaya, Kobaya, whatever.
Kobaya.
Because they're going into dry dock next year. Not next year, but in 2025.
Yeah.
So they're likely going to be the next sub on the dry dock list.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah, please reach out to her. She was with one of my first HINSA conference was at the Wisconsin Maritime Museum, and it was great to meet everyone for the first time and to kind of engage that way. So Karen's a very, very knowledgeable, very professional person who knows her stuff about
my first submarine.
Oh, very nice.
Beautiful
condition. Beautiful condition. The Cobia.
It's great stuff. Great area too. And now, just one more thing as well. Chopper73 asks, is there any talk of prospective new/old ships coming into the museum ship fleet in the U.S.? The only one I can think of, we're talking purely Navy here, I think the only one that's really having any chance is one of the frigates.
The Caliber.
Class.
Yeah.
In Erie, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, in Erie, Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Yeah, they're working hard. They're working hard to get one. They came up and visited maybe during COVID. Some of the ringleaders and movers on that project came up and interviewed our staff just to see what our strengths, weaknesses, SWOT analysis, what we learned, what they can learn from our mistakes, things like that. I can't remember the Haywood,
Halliburton.
Halliburton.
Yeah.
Halliburton.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah, so, Halliburton.
They, I think they're working hard. We'll see how it goes, but.
To my knowledge, they've gone the farthest of any ship in the modern world of trying to get a ship from the U.S. Navy. So the last news story was from August of this year, and apparently they were overlooking a potential site if they were to get it.
Yeah.
So it's clearly they're laying the groundworks. I haven't been to Erie, Pennsylvania myself, although I've been told it's got the Brig Niagara there, so they do have some maritime history stuff in that area. So
sure,
hey
there, yeah.
And I guess their whole idea is to get a Oliver Perry class ship into Lake Erie, where Admiral over Perry was. So I guess that's their logic to getting it.
It's absolutely like the Battle of Lake Erie in during the 1812 War. Was off of Erie and Put in Bay. So Buffalo was building and repairing some of that fleet at our Navy shipyard here on the Skajackwada Creek. And then it kept getting attacked by the British because Canada is 27 feet away across the Peace Bridge. Not really, but you know what I'm saying. So our Navy shipyard here at Skajackwada Creek was doing some of the repairs to the fleet. And then it got burned a couple of times by the British would cross the Niagara River, burn the Navy shipyard. And so they shifted everything down to Erie, Pennsylvania. That was much safer and much farther away from Canada. And so then that's where the Battle of Lake Erie took place. So it makes sense for them to get an Oliver Hazard Perry class.
Yeah, it makes sense. With all the modern ships, that would probably be the best place for it. But yeah.
And of course, everyone asks, so are you going to get the new USS Little Rock? You know, so.
The classic
ship
I was on was a Knox class.
Okay. You were on Knox class?
I was on a Knox, and a lot of the crews from Knox would like to get one as a museum. But very, very few people understand what it takes. And the people were screaming about the Kitty Hawk and the Kennedy and all these large ships. They don't, and not being malicious about it, they just don't understand the expense that it takes to keep one of these things up. I can't imagine trying to keep a carrier up. The cruiser's got to be crazy shit, you know, because it's big, you know, but the small ships are tough enough. So, but would be nice. I'd love to get back aboard a Knox. Mine's down at the bottom of the Med, so it's not going to be that one. But the destroyer I was on is up in Michigan. You know, the Edson.
Oh yeah, I've been on it.
I just haven't done what Shane hasn't done. I haven't gotten my keister up there to go see if my key still fits.
Yeah, I've been on Edson. It's in fantastic shape. They were redoing the decking when I was there. She's looking great.
Yeah, she is. I would like them to. That was a command center during the 9/11 attacks, and it would be really nice for them to really embrace that story and to tell that story. And because I think they converted a space on there as a communications hub and a communication center, and I think it would be really cool to incorporate that story into her history.
They do have a small section to that, and I think they have the flag that was flying off the stern that day in a glass case that the museum at Hornet had off the back. But I don't remember. I don't remember if they had a full display. It was part of their tour, though. Like their tour guide brought it up.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, I got a tour from their education guy. So.
Yeah, well, I'm going to head out, guys.
All right.
I wish you.
Well, Happy New Year.
Yeah, I'm going to take off too.
New Year as well.
All right.
Happy New Year to everybody.
Yes, we do.
Bothering you.
On a fairly regular basis.
I'm sorry, what was that, Tim?
I was answering KR in the chat. He asked if we ever talked to Ryan from USS New Jersey. I said we all talk to him on a fairly regular basis, I'm assuming.
Yeah, we all do.
I give him a hard time on a little group that all of us curatorial ship superintendent educator people have on Facebook that we talk ship. So I'll buzz him every once in a while or just send him a text. But yeah, we everybody in the fleet talks.
Mm-hmm.
So
everyone.
If we don't know somebody personally, we know somebody through somebody. So it's a small community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mostly just tease him about him not coming to the Great Lakes too much.
Yes, there's a lot of history in the Great Lakes here.
Yeah,
that's true. But thanks, guys. I think we'll be. If you did Ken give like a next time schedule or the topic or anything like that? Okay, so we'll do one
Find it
in
out later.
January. We just don't know what it is. So, all right.
I'm
Thanks,
happy
guys.
to come back as long as you guys want me.
Oh, Tim,
Yeah.
come back all the time. Buzz, come back every month. Please,
Yeah.
more the merrier. John's not
I'd love
here
to.
from the Slater, and more the merrier. We love it.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Happy anniversary or happy New Year to everyone in the
Happy
comments.
anniversary.
Yep. We'll see you next year.
Yep. See you next year. Bye bye. All right, I'll just turn this off.